Nigeria. How are you today? My name is Bekeme, and you're listening to the Good Citizen Radio Show. It's brought to you by CSR in Action and kindly sponsored by ACT, aka ACT Foundation, which is a grant-making organization established in 2016 to support national and regional non-profits and local as well in the areas of health, environment, entrepreneurship, and leadership. Now, throughout the week, it's been trending. This topic of xenophobia has been trending, and thanks to the recent attacks of the attacks on foreigners in South Africa, particularly blacks. I did a short video earlier where I said that I'm not sure that this is xenophobia. I thought this is black on black crime. However, for the purpose of this discussion, we'll stick with this because these attacks, while instilling fear and promoting insecurity, continues to threaten the lives and livelihood of foreigners. Air Peace kindly brought in, 178 Nigerians recently. Apparently it cost the airline 280 million. I think that's a great act of citizenship. However, the people that were brought back, we would like to hear what would happen with them. And there's the fact that these people were displaced from a country where they thought they would find some sort of succor. The recent spate of attacks has triggered concerns for me, particularly in Nigeria, because it has led to this violent movement as well. We talked about what happened at the malls actually last week, where Nigerian businesses were attacked as well. So they left the attack on foreign businesses and they said, oh yes, people who were driving nice cars as well, where did you get the money to buy the cars? So it's really a cause of concern for well-meaning Nigerians. And for South Africa, it's led to a call by different countries to ban business relations with them. And there's been an outright condemnation of the South African government because it does seem like there's some tacit support, or at least in the past, there's been some tacit support for the bad behavior. The United Nations High Commission for Refugees reports that in 2011, for instance, there were 154 reported cases of xenophobic attacks. There were 99 deaths, there were 100 serious injuries, and 1,000 people were displaced. In 2012, they reported 238 incidents. In 2013, 250 attacks were reported, 88 deaths, 170 serious injuries, and 7,000 were displaced. It gets worse. I bet that this year has been a lot worse. Now, what is xenophobia? The Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines it as a fear and hatred of strangers or foreigners. Fear and hatred of strangers or foreigners, or anything that is strange or foreign. This takes me back to my initial comment about what is strange and foreign about black people living in another black-dominated country. But then again, I look back on Nigeria and I think about all of our infighting, and I'm wondering who is strange, who is the stranger in our midst, especially when you consider the migratory tendencies of human beings and how certain tribes have literally moved across within the same space, and then in another place they become strangers. So what do I know? Human beings are very interesting. So xenophobia has become increasingly relevant in today's climate, and we today would explore how xenophobia or how mental health plays a role in the case of South Africa. It may be the case in other popular situations that we know about, for instance, Hitler and how he sought to wipe out the Jews because if you look at it, he thought, you know what, these guys are taking over our economy, so, let's find a way of getting rid of them. And he's not the first or the last person to come up with that. So, could it be what is happening here? Could it be something deeper, though? Could it be that the many decades of apartheid on black South Africans have caused them to have this thought that, people are constantly trying to take advantage of them? We'll explore all of that today, and we have none other than the very, very renowned Dr. Jibril Abdulmalik, who is a lecturer with the Department of Psychiatry, College of Medicine, University of Ibadan, to have this discussion with us. He's honorary consultant to the University College Hospital Ibadan, and he's also the convener CEO of the Asidu Foundation, which is a non-profit mental health advocacy organization that is committed to promoting better understanding around mental health issues in Nigeria. Welcome to the show, Dr. Abdulmalik.
Thank you very much for having me.
You recently wrote a book.
Yes.
What's the name of your book? And tell us about
Optimal Mental Health, an Everyday Guide. The book is actually a combination of my weekly articles around mental health over the past 3 years that have now been put together as one volume in a collection that's useful to everybody, because that's why the title is Optimal Mental Health, an Everyday Guide. And the reason that's also important is that when we think of mental health, just to quickly mention, we tend to imagine that that's a situation where somebody is walking around the streets naked and mad, in quotes. But mental health is a broad spectrum, ranging from mild things like phobias, anxiety attacks, depression, to more serious and more severe disorders. So all of us, everyone needs optimal mental health, and that's why this book is an essential must read for every home and every library.
Fantastic. So where can we get this book from?
Right, this book is available at Zenera. If you're in Lagos, it's available at Zenera office 54 Udeko Medical Road at Lekki. Okay. And if you're in Ibadan, you can get in touch with us at the University College Hospital, Department of Psychiatry, and we will make a copy available to you.
Awesome. Now, speaking about the nature of mental health, since we now understand that it's not raving mad people walking along the road, what do you, if any, do you think is the link between the mental health of South Africans and the xenophobia, that is the xenophobia scenario that's playing out in South Africa today?
Right. Thank you very much. I think to address this point, let's first of all clarify what exactly is mental health. And the way the WHO defines it is that, firstly, health is a combination of three things: physical health, mental health, and social well-being. Okay. So if you look at it from that perspective, mental health is 1/3 of health. Now, looking specifically at mental health, it's the ability...
So that's mental health,
physical health, and social well-being. Those three things make up health.
Okay.
So, but when we think about our health, we just say, let me go and do my physical checkup, let me check my blood pressure, my blood sugar, and then I exercise, I'm trimmed, so I'm fine. So we tend to neglect the mental aspect of our health, which is actually 1/3 of the WHO's definition of health.
Would the psychological aspect fall within that?
Yes. Mental, psychological, emotional. Okay. We can use them interchangeably.
Okay.
Right, but looking specifically at mental health, it's the ability to do 4 things successfully. The first one is the ability to fulfill or realize your own potential. And this is important because your potential, for instance, is different from mine. You may be exceptionally gifted in some areas that I may be very weak at. And I may also be very good at some other aspects that you are not very good at. So it has to be individualized. And for every individual, your ability to realize your own unique potential is a reflection of your mental well-being. Okay. So if you are optimally well and enjoying optimal mental health, you are more likely to be able to achieve or realize your potential. That's number one. Number two, the ability to cope with the normal stress, underlying normal stress of day-to-day living.
Okay.
That means that even if your father is Bill Gates or Dangote and so on, it does not, for instance, guarantee you a happy marriage.
Right.
Or not having difficulties with conception and so on. And so there is no foolproof guarantee against the normal stress of day-to-day living.
I see.
But your ability to cope with these stresses when they arise is an indicator of your mental well-being. Now, the third one is your ability to work productively, because everyone desires to have a meaningful life, to contribute something and to have a significant role in whatever capacity. So the ability to do that, so if, for instance, you are depressed, you may go to work, but you are not putting in your best, because at that time your mind is not there and you're not focused on the task, and so your productivity will decline. And the last one is the ability to participate meaningfully in society. And the smallest unit of the society is the family. So starting from the family, your role as your husband, as a wife, as a mother, as a husband, father, son, sister, daughter, whatever role. Your relationship with your neighbors, your relationship with your colleagues at work or in the church or in the mosque, within the society, how are you able to participate meaningfully? All these 4 attributes, very quickly again, realize your potential, cope with the normal stress of life, work productively, and participate meaningfully in society. These 4 things
are already pointing to issues that I'm seeing in South Africa, to be honest.
Absolutely. So by the time you then juxtapose this with the situation that's unraveling in South Africa, you know most certainly that significant numbers of individuals there cannot be enjoying optimal mental well health.
Right. That's interesting. So how does this play out? So I'm just thinking about it. Could it also be, and this is something that we talked about, could it also be something else? Okay, so the South African economy, the blacks agitated for so long to be removed from under white rule. Yeah. And then now they have it, but it doesn't appear to be going as they'd like for it to go. You mentioned earlier that could it be diversionary tactics by the leaders? And then also, are those leaders themselves under some sort of mental bondage? Because we fought for this. We have it now. Why can't we seem to move? And, why is this affecting so much? For a country that, has such potential for greatness, it's now just literally just belittled to this country that everybody's talking about for the wrong things.
Right. I absolutely agree with you that everywhere that there has been xenophobic attacks, all over the world, across history, it's always as a result of a calculated and systematic attempt by some politicians or their henchmen to utilize the tools of fear, ignorance, to cause hatred. And when you do that, you see, what they tend to do is to portray anybody who is a stranger in that environment as the bogeyman. To say, this is the person that's responsible for all the ills in society. Him.
Exactly. Just look away from us.
While you are busy chasing after them, you will stop scrutinizing what they are doing. And so, as you mentioned earlier, when Hitler utilized that strategy, he focused on the Jews, demonized them, and went after them and proclaimed Aryan superiority. And that got him political power, number one, consolidated power, and then rallied his people and he then wanted to dominate the whole world.
Right.
All over the world where you have that, and we also have a country now that's a superpower that's ruled by a president who also instinctively, as a political strategy, demonizes others.
Right.
Immigrants, foreigners, just name them, go after them, and meanwhile their economy is actually tanking. So you find that xenophobic attacks tend to get exacerbated in situations where there's political or economic turmoil. And that's part of what's happening in South Africa today. Blacks are now in power, but the ANC, the ruling ANC, is accused of lots of corruption. That's what got the ex-president Zuma out of office.
Right. And then so, we get another thing back in. I say thing. Oh, Lord. Okay, so we're going to go on a short break. Remember, now the lines are open to call as soon as we come back from the break. The number to call is 0700 923 923 93. Again, it's 0700 923 93 93. If you cannot reach us by any chance and you still want to be part of the discussion, please send us a message or messages on our social media platforms at Good Citizen NG, or send us a WhatsApp message on 0906 263 4111. Again, it's 0906 263 4111. We'll go on a short break and be right back on the Good Citizen Radio Show.
The Aspire Coronation Trust, ACT Foundation, is a non-profit organization established to help local, national, and regional non-profit organizations working to address the challenges and associated vulnerabilities across Africa. Our interventions are focused on 4 key areas, which are health, entrepreneurship, environment, and leadership. At ACT Foundation, We believe that together we can make a difference. So, let's come together to make the positive social impact we desire in our world.
Welcome back to the Good Citizen Radio Show. I'm Bekeme, and I have in the studio with me Dr. Jibril Abdulmalik, who's an expert in the mental health field. Before we went on the break, he was telling us about how leaders have in the past taken advantage of people's emotions, more or less, and encouraged them to behave badly, I would say, because, I mean, xenophobia, you can decide or you can logically determine that something isn't good for you and find a logical way of addressing it, as opposed to coming up with, or rather instigating people to carry out violent attacks against others. We are global citizens, especially in today's world, and there really is no reason why people should be asked to go, to just up and leave whatever they have without ceremony. Now, Dr. Abdulmalik, I wanted to ask, how would you say xenophobia affects society?
Right. Let me mention that there is no human being that witnesses trauma or dehumanization of another human being that is left untouched. Everybody, all of us are victims when these sort of attacks occur, wherever they occur. And so even the perpetrators, even those who are attacking others, the perceived foreigners, are themselves victims because they are pawns in the grand scheme of events, and they themselves lack understanding of the big picture, because if they did, they wouldn't act the way they are doing. And even when they attack other human beings, they lose part of their humanity. Down the line, some of them are going to have guilt feelings, they are going to feel upset, they are going to relive the trauma of what they've actually carried out on other human beings, and that is going to leave a void in them. It's going to leave like an emotional injury. So they themselves are going to be traumatized, and in the long term, some of them may actually end up having post-traumatic stress disorder, or developing depression, or turning to drug abuse and alcohol to try and help them forget the traumatic activities they've carried out in the past. So even the perpetrators themselves are victims. Now let's look at those who have been victims of xenophobic attacks. Let me mention quickly that for every immigrant, when they experience xenophobic attacks, it becomes like a double jeopardy. What I mean is, the first blow to anyone who is an immigrant, regardless of whether your race, even a British citizen who migrates to live in the US, has an increased risk of developing mental health problems once you are an immigrant.
Really?
Yes, because even if you are the same race, the reasons are, one, you experience a different culture. The British culture is different from the American culture, which is different from the French culture. So even if you are Caucasian and you relocate from where you are used to the culture to a different country, you experience culture shock, number one. Number two, the weather may be different. The stressors adjusting to that society may be different, and so you're under pressure. You also do not want to have traveled all that distance and end up as a failure.
So there's that pressure.
Exactly. So that is number one, that you are at an increased risk of developing mental health problems compared to if you had remained in your own country.
Absolutely.
So when you then superimpose on this increased risk of mental health problems the ferocity of xenophobic attacks, where you are singled out simply for being different, and you then experience verbal, which is still mild, emotional, then physical abuse, violence, including witnessing deaths and so on in very horrific circumstances,
or even participating in those attacks led to death.
And so you see, we are actually all traumatized. It's just that for some people, it's firsthand because they've either seen people being killed in their presence, or they themselves were injured, or they've lost close family members in this type of violence. But for the rest of us, merely seeing those videos is by itself, even if you live in New York, you watch a video clip shared on WhatsApp, on Facebook, on YouTube, you get secondarily traumatized.
Trust me, you do. I've gone around this week literally asking people questions like, why do you think they think like this? Like, how can this be? What do you think the person was thinking? I mean, I watched a video of a young man, a South African, who was being interviewed by an international journalist.
Okay.
Now, his focus wasn't xenophobia, but his focus was actually on a life of crime. And this young man was confidently saying to the cameras that he would kill anybody to get a meal. He says, I turn up at their homes and I ask them for anything. If they don't give it to me, I know what to do. Literally, I would put their child in an oven if I have to get what I want. And I'm thinking, this person can't be normal. And his friend who was with him, who said he had moved on from the life of crime, was explaining to the interviewer that he had been traumatized in his youth because he had watched his father or mother being killed in front of him. And so he had literally become this, in quote, monster that, was totally unrepentant and, could do anything literally to survive. So imagine such a person, being fed the propaganda that these economic migrants are the cause of their problems. Imagine what he would do. And imagine what would happen. So it's a vicious cycle to a child who watched something happen to their parents or their neighbors or whatever. And, it's a really... So, I mean, how do you think this can be tackled?
Now, you've just put your finger right on a societal problem. There is this concept that's called adverse childhood experiences, ACE, adverse childhood experiences.
Okay.
And we now know from research that the more children are exposed to several adverse childhood experiences, including domestic violence, including watching violence, killings, and all of those sorts of things, divorce, loss of a parent. The higher the number of adverse childhood experiences a child experiences, the higher the chances that that child will grow up to become a troubled adult who will also have mental health problems and a predisposition to also perpetuate the same vicious cycle. So
there is a predisposition.
Absolutely.
Could that be genetic?
No, not genetic. In this case, it's nurture.
I know, in this case, it's nurture, but is there a predisposition genetically for people?
Not really. It's more of nurture. In conditioning, that you grow up in an environment where you witness this going on and you adjust. It's the same problem we see in Black American communities where there's gang violence. You grow up is the only way to survive, and so you have to adapt or perish. And so you adapt and join. The same thing also we have on our university campuses where young people join calls for protection or for power or for various reasons. So you either fit in or you are out.
Right.
And so it's more of conditioning by the environment, which is a force of nurture.
Okay, Dr. Malik, two more questions. The first is, if you were appointed an advisor to the South African government, a mental health advisor, what would you advise them to do?
Right. Now, we know that for the South African society, which in a way is also similar to the Nigerian society, that there is a lot of societal inequalities. And the best way to bridge inequalities is to empower people with education. We know that after the overthrow of apartheid, there is now a sort of quota system where some positions are reserved for Black South Africans.
Character.
Exactly. For Black South Africans. But the problem is that most of the time...
We have a call. We'll take this one call because, hello? It might be something they really need to hear about. Hello?
Hello, good evening.
Good evening. Thanks for calling the Good Citizen Radio Show. What's your name, please?
This is Janet, calling from Orile.
This is Janet from Orile.
Yes.
Hi, Janet. Do you have a question or a comment, please?
Comment.
Okay.
Okay, this xenophobic attack that is happening in South Africa is very, very appalling. In the sense that the Black South Africans, not the white this time around, the Black, because they are the one causing this chaos. So they forgot that these same Africans that are asking to leave the country, they were the ones that was fighting for them. They were the one that made them what they are. The freedom that they are enjoying today, especially Nigeria, was one of the countries that put them in that forefront. And for they to turn on these African countries now, it's very, very, very appalling.
It is.
Very appalling.
Thank you.
That's what I have to say. And for the people that are, I thank God for the Nigerian government that are making efforts to bring our people back. Though it's very, very sad for them, most of them, their businesses, their families.
I know. We just hope that there's something for them here. Like there's a plan for, reintegrating them back into society. Thank you so much for calling, Jenna. Thank you. The thing is that many South Africans who are agitating now are pretty young. They didn't know what Nigeria did at the time. And the ones who do say, yes, we know you did, thank you, but can you go back now? So final question, since we had to cut short that. Just a tip for 30 seconds. Give us tips since you're here.
Yeah.
What can we do to support anybody, family member, close friend that we suspect might be mentally traumatized?
Right. And we need to firstly show them that we are concerned.
Okay.
Be there for them. Pay them, listen to them.
Right.
And then encourage them. You don't need to be a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a professional. Just be there for them. That is helpful. Number two, if you think that they are not getting better or they still have problems, please ensure that they see a competent mental health professional.
Okay.
It's very key. And particularly in our environment, we should please do away with the shame and stigma of no, I've not run mad and all of that. Everybody from time to time may need to see a mental health professional.
Are there free ones with the government, primary health care or anything?
Not at the primary care level. It should be, but it's not. But at the government facilities, it's rather cheap. It's not expensive at all.
Okay, so those were his points. Please look after those close to you who might have, any mental challenges. Be there. Do not judge. Do not start pointing fingers and telling everybody in your neighborhood, at church, whoever. It's nothing to whisper about. It's a third of your health. So if anybody has challenges, there's solutions. Help them to get the right care. Thank you, Dr. Abdulmalik, for coming on the Good Citizen Radio Show. And thank you to all our listeners out there. Just remember that Domino's still has the barbecue burst pizza for you. It's exciting, delicious, and the sweet sensation is like you've never tasted before. I can assure you of that. Dr. Abdulmalik is taking one home with him, and our caller Janet also gets one wherever she is. So keep the feedback coming at Good Citizen NG on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And listening to this episode again or catch up on previous episodes on SoundCloud. Just search for The Good Citizen Show. I'm your host, Bekeme. I'm listening every Friday at 8 p.m. on Inspiration FM 92.3. And remember, the show is brought to you by CSR in Action and funded by ACT Foundation. Have yourselves a great, great Friday and weekend. Bye-bye.